Murli Manohar Joshi, he had planned his Kanyakumari to Kashmir yatra, and it was being coordinated by this very young and bright and very up and about Karyakarta from Gujarat called Narendra Bhai Modi. And every time we would want to find out details of the yatra, where could we join it, to write about it, we would be directed to him. And those days there were no cell phones, there was no way you could just send a message or something. But what was remarkable is that Modi ji had set up a line of communication across the country. So even if you left a message, it reached him. And you got a reply with details. So that was the first time I think some of us caught up with the yatra as it was entering Jammu or before it entered Jammu. And those are my earliest memories of him. He was, it's not that he was, what I remember is that he was not a very vocal person. He was not talking all the time, or he was not trying to sort of be all over the place. And yet silently, quietly, he ensured that the yatra reached up to Jammu. You know, people often think of Modi ji as a political leader, as a politician, or as a party person. But there are various facets to him. For instance, Modi ji, the person, as an individual, you know, he was never a very gregarious, outgoing person, in the sense that the normal politician sort of, you will find him or her talking to people, looking for media interaction, trying to sort of promote himself, which is fine. I mean, that is what politics is all about. Modi ji was always very reticent. He was always very, I think self-effacing would be the right expression. Even on things which he did, whatever the party assignments were, or organizing elections in these states, running the election campaign. There were some important elections, state assembly elections during that period. He would never bring himself to the fore. And at 11 Ashoka Road, media persons who were covering the BJP, they knew about his role, his importance, where he fitted in the party hierarchy. As, I mean, a general secretary those days was a very powerful person, especially when you were in charge, independently in charge of states. And they would often go knocking on his door, but I do not remember him entertaining journalists or inviting them to his room. He had a small room. It's very interesting. I mean, today's 11 Ashoka Road looks nothing like it. It was just an old bungalow, largely as it was when it became party headquarters in the 80s. You see, politicians generally tend to not have time, which is again understandable because they have a million things to do. And I think it is this lack of time which robs them of curiosity. But Modi ji was different. He was very particular about timekeeping. He was a great time manager. I recall one particular incident. I don't know for what purpose, but it was something which got over in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then I thought I would sit back and talk some more, but he was very curt. He was polite and curt. That meeting over, now you get back to your work, I get back to my work. Which again is contrary to politicians who like to sort of lounge around, और फिर क्या खबर है, और इसका क्या खबर है, that guy. He was never like that. And yet, he was extremely curious about all kinds of things. He was curious about how foreign governments work. He was curious about how international systems work. He was curious about how parliament works. Modi ji was curious. He was curious about how pagers worked. Those days it was about pagers. And then when cell phones first came, he was one of the first leaders of the BJP or seniors in the BJP to start using a cell phone. Modi ji's switch over to the cell phone, I think, was curiosity driven. That he wanted to know how did this technology work, and he would actually, once I discovered in one conversation the difference between an Ericsson and a Nokia phone. And so that was the level of curiosity which he had, that people started realizing that yes, you can have a government which is not corrupt. Where I remember in one particular instance, I think a contractor complained that a district collector or magistrate, whatever it is, that he is called in Gujarat, magistrate or collector or commissioner, he had taken money. Modi ji actually called that person. Now, which chief minister will actually call a district level official or a divisional level official to his office and told him that whatever I have to do with you, that will be done. That's a later thing. But you will return this money to the contractor or the supplier or whatever right now. And this is one of such many stories.